AIM-listed out-of-hours and urgent care provider Totally PLC has reported a 10% jump in interim revenues to £54.1 million and has turned last year's loss into a profit. The period between March and September this year has been one of the strangest for us all, but when you work so closely with the NHS, as Totally PLC does, there cannot have been much time to do anything else. Wendy Lawrence is founder and chief executive. She joins us now on the line from Derby. Wendy, good to talk to you. I should put all this into some sort of context, of course, because all this has come despite a 50% reduction in income for the period for the planned care division due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As an NHS 111 service provider, amongst other contracts you have with the NHS, as I just said, it must have been a bit busy. Tell us what's been going on.
A bit busy is one term for it, Jeremy. I mean, I think, as you rightly said, none of us have actually lived through such times before, and I think it's impacted every one of us and every business. For Totally, it's impacted our three divisions quite differently. So our urgent care division, which you've already referred to as a 111 provider, urgent treatment centres, we saw unprecedented increases in demand around February, March time, and obviously during the period that we've reported. And at the peak of the pandemic, 111 saw about 400% of the demand that it would normally see in that period. So you can imagine we've been busy. We've stood shoulder to shoulder with the NHS during that time and delivered frontline services, whether that be on 111 or in our urgent treatment centres, or in fact, new services which have been implemented as a response to the NHS request for managing coronavirus. And we're still doing that today. And just a reminder, really, that urgent care as our division is 96% of our revenues. So it is by far the biggest division within Totally. So whilst our other divisions, which is our planned care and insourcing, saw the opposite effect. Elective care was all cancelled in the NHS during the first lockdown, and we did see a turn down in revenues. That figure of a 50% drop in planned care is minimal compared to the large revenues in urgent care. And I do have to say, now during the second lockdown post-period, all of our divisions are back up and working again, and in fact planned care is operating at about 85% of its pre-coronavirus levels.
With this slowdown in the elective and planned care division, have you been able to shift staff across from that division, which clearly hasn't been a focus, into the urgent care? I talk about this in the context of our last conversation earlier in the year where you were recruiting within the urgent care division.
Yes, loosely. Where we have been able to deploy staff into the other divisions, we have. Obviously, during the period as well, we've had to work like every other business and ensure that our staff are safe. So we have had a number of staff that we've had to shield, if they've got underlying conditions or other things. And so what we've had to do is be very responsive to not only the needs of the service, but also the needs of the staff. So that's been quite a balancing act for us when you are working at the front line, because obviously if people have got underlying conditions and you're expecting them to go into a healthcare setting and treat people, you have to be very mindful of what you need to do for your staff as well.
Yeah. Just want to pick up on the point as well you mentioned about moving into this second half of the year. And just I want to, if I can, get some more emphasis on how this has started and how you're dealing with this second lockdown and how things are different this time around. I get the feeling from having spoken to others within the sector that this second lockdown is very different. We've learned a lot, of course, from lockdown version 1. So far as you're concerned, is it a different set of issues you're having to deal with, or is it just more of the same in a different way?
It's more of the same in a different way. I mean, I think a lot of people have learned from the first lockdown in terms of how you can do things and what's different. I mean, we were very prepared for the second lockdown because we put everything in to being, whether that be PPE, whether that be new ways of working, whether that be video consultations rather than face-to-face. So all of those things were already in place and we never stood those down from the first lockdown. So when we went into the second wave and we could see the second wave coming because we were getting increased demand again, we were much more prepared. Everybody had got the PPE. We knew what the systems and processes were. And of course, the NHS didn't stop its elective care because they were much more they planned for this much more than we were able to do the first time round. So it's the same issue. Lots of people contacting us, lots of people wanting access to service, but it's different because I think it's much more managed.
Yeah, you go to great lengths as well to say that you are reluctant. Indeed, it is impossible in the current environment to give any forecasts. I mean, clearly this is difficult, and we are to some degree feeling around in the dark. As I said, this second lockdown gives us, obviously, we've had some experience. What do you see as the risks to the forecast? Do you think there could be actually, ultimately, from a business perspective, a pleasant surprise in the second half?
Well, yes. And I think it's that amount of unknown, Jeremy, being very, very honest with you. I mean, the way that we used to grow the business, or the way we used to grow revenues substantially, was there were lots and lots of services put out to tender of which we could, go for, and at a very good success rate. What's happened whilst the NHS has been focusing very much on managing the pandemic, all of those different services have just stopped. The tenders are not appearing. So it's not a case of, we can't go for them. They're not there. And so we're waiting now, as many businesses, looking at how we get back into those processes. In planned care, we did see a tender come out a couple of weeks ago. So that's the first one for months and months and months. Now, I think the thing with urgent care, which again, emphasising is the biggest part of our business, we just don't know, do we? I mean, if there is a vaccine that's available, if there's multiple vaccines available, what does that mean to the way that we trade? Does it mean that anyone wanting to access services has got to show that they're vaccinated? We don't know. There are just so many unknowns. And I think for me, it's really important to get guidance out, but we should only put guidance out when we know that we can deliver them and we can explain how we've arrived at those forecasts. And right now, there are just so many moving parts.
Has Totally, in your mind, successfully risen to the challenge put on it from the expanded NHS requirements? I ask this because it's interesting to know more how the NHS works in contract allocation. I mean, you're steeped in the NHS from a career perspective. Assuming the NHS is happy with what Totally has provided, do you see this as an avenue to securing more work, or is that not how it works within the NHS? Do you have to go through the painful process of bidding for contracts at every turn?
Yeah, I mean, we will still have to bid for contracts. I mean, that the NHS, like every other public sector organisation, has a duty to make sure that they're not only getting value for money, but also that the service is high quality. And Jeremy, you will remember from when we've spoken before, I have had this tendency to harp on a little bit about the need to provide high quality service, and the fact that if you don't provide high quality patient care, then that's not going to give you the longevity on the partnerships. And I think what we've done over the years is we've shown that we do deliver high quality service. We've shown that we do deliver. And I think during the pandemic, we've proven beyond any doubt that whatever the NHS has asked us to do, we have been there shoulder to shoulder. And my staff have worked through service change, service remodelling. We have removed face-to-face contacts wherever we can and put them onto video consultations. And I have to say, the people that work with us have just been amazing during this time. And you wouldn't know whether they were NHS or a private provider, because they have just responded to whatever the public has needed during that period, and themselves been faced with a virus, of course.
Yeah. Let's just go back to the numbers, if I can. You operate a cash positive balance sheet with no debt. You've said this to us before. Cash is now £12.3 million. I want to bring up a share price chart, because at 18 pence, you got this 12.3 million in cash in context for market capitalisation of £34 million. First of all, what are your plans for the money? And what's your comment about, as I say, the cash and the value that is in the company at 18 pence a share?
Okay, I'll take your first question first, because I think that's an easier one to answer. So whilst we've said we will remain acquisitive, we haven't got anything big in the locker at the moment, and I don't think we can preempt going back to the market to raise more money, because we don't see that as a priority. We are looking at a few interesting bolt-ons, and we will be looking at how we use our money into that. So we have relied heavily on technology during the period, and we've realised that technology can open up doors for us in different ways, and it's kind of brought forward the agenda. We've replaced our telephony system during the period. We have implemented a new clinical assessment service, which is all about how we stream people through 111. And again, we've moved where we can face-to-face consultation onto video consultation. And that's a biggie for us, and I think we could do way more on that. So technology is an interesting area, as is the use of AI, artificial intelligence usage when you're actually going through mass numbers in terms of demand is an interesting thing that we're looking at. But there's also other things in there for us around, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself, what's come out during coronavirus is this bit of, those patients that have underlying conditions are way more vulnerable to viruses such as coronavirus. And so, there could well be something more that we should be doing in Totally to how we help people to live with those underlying conditions and avoid that ill health status that then brings them more vulnerable to the virus. So we will grow. We have picked up additional work. You will see that our revenues have grown, but it's not in those big 10, 15 million pound contracts. In terms of the share price, the value, the cash, I wish we understood it. And I mean, we as an executive team have literally just sat back and said, you know what, we just need to make sure that we deliver. If we deliver to all of the targets that are out there for us, if we continue to grow, if we continue to have no debt and build our cash and show people that we know what we're doing, then, hopefully the share price will look after itself. Those, the figures, and it's always disappointing when you know the quality of what you're doing and your share price doesn't quite respond. So, but we're just getting on and making sure that we as a business deliver. And that's why I don't want to put forecasts out there that then we can't deliver. But again, forecasts are
Absolutely, I understand. Of course, you're along with every other chief executive in obviously not being able to predict the share price, but obviously do as much as you can in order to support shareholder value. Wendy, look, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I just want to catch up one final question, talking about this second lockdown. Vaccine, 3, 4, 5, 6 months away. As an NHS contract provider, are you going to bid for trying to distribute the vaccine at all?
At the moment, and as you can imagine, we are involved in talks with the NHS on every aspect of managing coronavirus. So for some months now, we've been talking to them about when a vaccine actually appears, what will be that distribution and the vaccination programme. So whilst we don't know how it will work yet, and there are still some hurdles to get that out, we would expect, because we have staff all over the country, that we would be part of a vaccination programme.
Yeah, look, as I said, Wendy, it's been a pleasure. Thanks indeed for joining us. Wendy Lawrence, Chief Executive of Totally PLC. I should also say that I am a small shareholder in the company. That was today's Chief Executive interview with us here on IGTV.